Hi everyone, my name is Edidiong. I'm a software developer in Nigeria, which is part of Africa, and I'm basically talking about like a guide to speaking at conferences in Africa. So to generally be about speaking at conferences, but then using Nigeria and Africa as a case study, right? So when I explain things, I'll try to point out how it works in Nigeria and how those things actually help speakers connect more to audience in Nigeria. All right. So the next slide just basically talks about the certain things I'll talk about today, which is understanding your audience, practicing speaking effectively, and also using practical examples when you're giving your speech. So I said it's important to understand your audience because when you understand the audience, it gives you an opportunity or basically makes you understand the right way to create your audience. Sorry, to create your content, right? So that when you're giving that talk, it's targeted towards that particular audience, right? Because you don't want to be in a situation where you prepared your talk for experts and then you come to meet beginners at the event because that would basically mean that they won't understand anything you're saying, right? So you need to be able to understand your audience. Who am I going to get and speak to? Why do they want to listen to this thing? And then create your content around that audience. So to understand your audience, there are certain questions you need to ask yourself. And I'll try to explain those questions today and give you explain why those questions are also important as well. So these are a list of it, who they are, what do they need, and why do they want to listen to your talk? When would they listen to that talk, and how would they listen to the talk? So I'll also try to break down each of them for you to understand why I think those questions are really important. So the first one is, who are they? So before you go to go and give a talk, you need to figure out, am I going to give this talk to beginners, like I already mentioned, or experts or intermediates? So if you figured out that this talk is centered for beginners, or maybe beginners are coming to the event, you would tailor your talk to be very simple and straight to the point. So that means you want people to be able to understand that particular conversation, what you're talking about. And then if your talk is centered around experts, you should tell your talk, you know that experts already know a lot about that particular topic, right? So the fact that they're coming to listen means that, or maybe they found this topic really interesting, or they just want to gain extra knowledge. So you need to be able to practice well to ensure that you're giving a really good talk. And don't get me wrong, there are also times where you're giving talks that are for intermediates, for experts and beginners together. So at that point, you also need to make those talks really simple and straight to the point so that it makes sense to a beginner, but also is as interesting to an expert as well. So I'll give an instance for what happens in Nigeria. So most times them in Africa is really good. We're definitely really doing amazing things. And then because of that, because people see that others are doing amazing things, there are also a lot of other people that are coming into the ecosystem to become developers, to become designers, right? So that means that every meetup, there are always chances of having a lot of newbies at those meetups, right? Because we in Nigeria and Africa, we try to encourage people to come to meetups and connect with people. So there's always a chance that you definitely see beginners at that meetup. So sometimes people don't try to figure out, okay, hey, this is my particular talk only for beginners or only for experts. And then sometimes they just come in and speak things that are really, really hard to understand because these people you're talking to don't have prior knowledge about that particular topic. And that way it makes the beginner even more confused and I'll just say, oh, hey, I think coding is not for me, right? Because the person couldn't understand what anybody was saying. And the reason why that didn't happen is because the people didn't actually try to understand who they're going to go and speak to. So that's why it's important to always understand who are these audiences, who are these people you're going to go and speak to. Are you speaking to experts or intermediates? And then try to tailor your content to those particular set of people. And then the next thing is, what do they need? Why are they coming to listen to your talk? So I can see there's this possibility that I just want to get an overview about your topic, or I want to get a practical guide on your topic, or maybe I just want to see you actually code how to do that thing, right? So if that is what is in my head and I come and you're just telling me, oh, hey, maybe this is HTML and this is CSS, you're not actually giving me a practical example of what you're talking about, I would be disappointed. So I think it's always important to know that people spend money to either come to meet you at an event physically when there was no coronavirus, and then sometimes they had to pay for data to actually listen to you speak, right? So in Nigeria, for instance, where it's a bit more, it's definitely more expensive to actually purchase data, right? So people don't want to regret spending their data on you after listening to your talk. So I think a good way to understand what people need is actually having the right topic. So your topic should not be a guide to understanding React. And then when the content of the talk is basically giving an overview of React, do you understand? Because if you're coming as a guide to understanding React, people are now like, okay, yeah, I need to know that everything, this is what I need to do, and then do this and do that. Not to come and get an overview of what React is, but then to get like a practical knowledge of what React is. So when you tailor your topic in the right way, they will understand, okay, hey, this is why I'm coming here, and then this is what I expect to get. And if you say an overview of React, then it means that your chances are you're probably going to be speaking to beginners. But then if you say like a practical guide or integrating with something of React, it basically means that maybe there are more people that want to understand that thing actually have prior knowledge about React. So the next question is, when will they listen? So it's possible that you're probably like a speaker in the US and then you're speaking to people in Africa. And obviously the time difference for most countries are not the same. So chances are it's probably in the morning over there and then it's evening in Nigeria, for instance. So how do you understand what is the time zone in that particular country? How do I to fit into what you're going through, right? So let's say I've listened to it like evening. It's possible that I probably had like a rough day or maybe the day was really crazy. So I want you to talk in like a really calm with a understand and not necessarily just being about this. But then if it's in the morning, that means my head is like super bright. I'm just like, hey, let's listen to this talk. So understanding the audience where you're going to be is really important to help you tailor your content around those particular audience or moments. And then a good thing would be if you know that you're speaking in Nairobi, right? Like in the evening. So what if you learn how to say good evening or maybe hello in Nairobi? So it actually brings in the vibe. Like people are like, oh, hey, he or she actually tried to learn this particular word in Nairobi. And I feel like it also increases conversations because you'd probably be like, oh, hey, how do I say this in Nairobi? Or did I say it well? And then definitely somebody wants to respond to say, oh, no, you didn't say it well, or maybe you tried, something like that. So it already builds like a connection between you and the audience as well. And then the next one is, how will they listen? So before coronavirus happened, most events were always basically offline events. But because of the virus now, we're basically doing more online events than offline events. So you need to understand, how will they be listening? Are they going to listen to you via like their computers, or are they going to see you physically? When you understand this concept, it helps you create your content in like the right way. So let me play a video. I hope this works. So just to give like a brief overview of what this means. Sometime last year, towards the end of last year, I was preparing for a talk which was basically talking about getting into tech, surviving and killing it. So getting it means, oh yeah, you've gotten it. Then surviving is, how are you surviving in the tech industry? Then killing it is like basically standing out. So I tried to explain it in like different steps, from the getting in, the surviving and the killing it. And then when I click on this video, you see that there are some things that I added here. So let me just play the video now and try to explain. It's just like a really quick video, so it shouldn't take any of your time. So as you can see, it's saying this is like a girl that is confused about what to do. It says, raise your hand if you're not into tech. Raise your hand if you are into tech. Then how did you get into tech? Share your story. So if I go back here a bit, you see that this point says, raise your hand if you're not into tech. And when I prepared this talk at the time, I prepared it because I knew that I was going to see those people physically to actually tell them, raise your hand. Because if they raise their hand, I can actually see them, right? But if I want to give this talk virtually, I know that people don't necessarily like showing their videos when they're listening to tech talks, and they don't want to be the one to tell them, oh, please, can you on your video? Let me actually see your hand. Do you understand? So because I understood that, and I actually took an effort to actually go through the slides again because I wanted to give this same talk like a few weeks back. And then I realized that this particular slide I added before that worked before was not going to work now because it has changed. It's no longer physically. I'm now talking to them virtually. And I don't want to tell them, oh, hey, can you on your camera and like raise up your hand? Let me see your hand. I know if you're into tech or not. So I actually like change the concept of that particular talk in this particular sense. So that's why it's important to know how they would be listening to you, and then also try to tailor your content towards that as well. So that is all about understanding your audience. So now you've understood your audience, what's the next best thing to do? Is to actually practice. Sometimes people decide that, oh, hey, I want to speak about technical writing, for instance. Most times they actually have an idea of what they want to talk about, but then almost every time speakers are always working on their slides, like 2 minutes before their talk or like a day before their talk. I think this happens rampantly in Africa and like in Nigeria as well. I know there are definitely times where I do it, and I think it's completely wrong because it doesn't give you an opportunity to actually practice and like prepare for your talk. So I'll explain why practicing is good. So a couple of times in Africa as well, there could be time, like I mentioned, there could be times where the internet connection goes off or the power supply goes down, right? So this means at this point in time, your slides will no longer be showing. And trust me, that happened like a couple of times. So, and then at those times, you realize that speakers would just look and be like, okay, hey, let me wait for my slide to come back up. This means that they actually really did practice that talk, because if you actually practice that talk, it means that you understand everything with or without slides, and you know where to continue from. You're not just reading from the slides. But if you're right or preparing your slides like 2 days before or like a day before, or maybe like on that particular day, it means that you're not actually really ready, and then anything can happen. And then there are also some cases where so let's say for instance in Lagos, right? There's a lot of traffic in Lagos. And there are times where you're going for an event and then you get stuck in traffic. So it's possible that one of the speakers might be stuck in traffic, and then they'll tell you, oh, hey, Edidiong, can you quickly, or Nara, can you quickly come and like join, like speak before this other speaker? And if you were not ready, if you didn't prepare your slides, it means that your talk will not go well as you planned. And why did that happen? It's because you didn't practice beforehand. You only prepared your slides 2 or 3 days before. Okay, you actually prepared your slides 2 or 3 days before that particular session, right? So I'm going to try to explain the different tips you need to hear or like understand to actually know the best way to practice. And this is basically some of the things that actually work for me. So the first thing would be to, well, you don't have to follow the exact steps or do one after the other, but it's just something that you can actually try to follow because it actually works. Or it's I don't know if everybody has like a mirror in their house, but then if you don't, you can actually use your phone. But then if you do, try using a mirror. So like just look at the mirror and talk directly to the mirror. Like you say, okay, hey, this is what I'm trying to say. So pretend that the person you're seeing in the mirror is like the audience and you are the speaker. So you actually look at the mirror and like actually speak and like practice your session. And then the second one would be to use a stopwatch. So I feel like the attention span of human beings is really small. So you don't want to make the talk super long, right? Just go straight to the point and make it as short and simple as possible. So I think it's important to like practice with a stopwatch. So stopwatch basically tracks how long you're spending. I think almost all the times, maintainers of these events tell you, okay, hey, you're going to speak for 10 days, you're going to speak for 15 days, for instance. So how do you try to time yourself to speak for 10 minutes? You don't want to kind of speak for like 30 minutes while people are already tired and expecting the next speaker. So it's important to always do that. I feel like in Africa, like people really appreciate when you go straight to the point. Like you say, okay, hey, this is what you want to do. You go straight to the point, you talk about it, and then you give like an amazing, short and simple talk immediately. The fact that it's short doesn't mean that you shouldn't actually put or use like the right content or explain it effectively. But then it just means that you're going straight to the point. And then the next one is like putting yourself in the shoes of attendees. So let's imagine you're going to speak to newbies, and you're now an intermediate or expert, for instance. You should try to remember you try to say, okay, hey, when I was a beginner, how long did it take for me to understand this particular thing, right? And then try to put yourself in the shoes of the beginner and try to explain things in a way that they understand. And then the next thing to do is to practice your talk until you're actually ready for it. So that's like not doing it a day before, but actually doing like a week before or a few days before the event. And then also try to practice like a dummy run with your friends, for instance. So maybe somebody can just be in front of you and you try to practice the talk in front of the person. So I know I've passed time, but I'm trying to wrap up, almost done. So the next thing would be to speak effectively. So even after you've understood your audience, you've also been able to practice well. How are you speaking during the session? And I think this covers what you say and how you say it. So are you saying it loud enough for people to be able to understand? And then are you also saying it in a really clear way that people actually understand what you're saying? Like how are you saying it? Do people listen to you and understand what you're saying? Or are people at the back not hearing you very well? Because I feel like in Nigeria and Africa as well, there are times where we have really huge events and we have like up to like hundreds of people. So how do you want people at the back seat to actually also hear what you're saying? So you need to also be able to speak loud enough and also speak clearly too. So the last one is using practical examples while you're giving your talk. So I feel people really relate to you when you explain something with maybe what happened to you or what happened to a friend, for instance. So if you're saying if your talk is about how to contribute to open source, or maybe how open source can help your career, talk about somebody in the tech industry that open source actually helped his or her career. Because when you say that, people see that this is a practical example of like somebody that this thing is helping. So if open source could help him, then maybe it can also help me as well, rather than just saying, oh, open source can help you do this or do that. So when they see a practical example, when they see somebody that has lived this life or this thing that you're saying, they feel more connected to the conversation, and they feel more inclined to actually do what you're saying. So an instance would be when I gave a talk sometime in New York, talking about somebody that was always really active in the community. This title of the talk was The Power of Developer Communities. And then I tried to use an example of a friend who started out being active in the community and how his journey has been so far. So they were able to connect to that person and be like, okay, hey, if Juma could do it, then I can actually also do it as well. So always try to use practical examples, because people in Africa really connect to that when you're like giving them practical examples of certain things in like your topic. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for listening.